Hello, and welcome to using Mentor Text to Springboard STEM lessons. My name is Rachael, and I'm presenting for building engineers in K-12 classrooms. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education from UNC Greensboro. I have a master's degree in instructional technology from NC State, and I'm the current STEM lab teacher at Robbins Elementary. I have taught in Bladen County and Moore County, North Carolina. In the classroom, I taught 4th grade and 5th grade, and currently in the STEM lab, I teach preschool through 5th grade. I'm in my 11th year teaching and my 8th year at my current school. Let's start with the question, what is STEM? Many of us already know the acronym for the integration of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But what is STEM really? To me, STEM is about communication, critical thinking, and digital literacy. It's teaching students to become independent as well as to work with others when the need arises. Students learning to analyze their work and solve problems, using their creativity and developing an initiative to go out and seek a problem to solve on their own. So how do we do this? It's through a process called the engineering design process. Students learn to ask, imagine, plan, create, and improve. In some lessons, the process is very linear, going from ask to improve, and the students ending with a final result at the end. In other lessons, it forms more of a circle. Once the students get to the improve stage, they realize that they need to make some changes and go through the process again. The more familiar they become with STEM, they adjust to the concept that failure is not the end, but just the beginning of another round of problem solving. So where do mentor texts come into play with this? Mentor texts are a wonderful way to start a STEM lesson or a STEM activity. But before we get too far, let's make sure that we are all on the same page for what a mentor text is. For the purpose of this presentation, a mentor text is a piece that can be read and reread for many different purposes. It can contain great examples of writing and offer opportunities for students to think. When you're choosing a mentor text, there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. We're going to start in the bottom corner where it says start by choosing the topic. That's always my first step. I think through what topic do I want to touch on. It can be based on an interest that the students have. It could be based on their curriculum standards or even a current event that's going on around them. From there, I pick a text that is related to that topic. I try to find something that I enjoy reading because as we read to our students, our emotion comes through our text. If we find something boring, then we're going to lose their interest and they're not going to be as engaged in the activity. Next, you think about the end. What do you want them to get out of the activity? Is it meant just to be fun, or are you wanting them to learn something from this? Then make a connection from the book to the activity. Ask what if questions. Ask can we questions. Think of how to extend past the book. And finally, and this is more for the teachers, make sure that you read and reread the book. Make sure that it's a book that you are familiar with or even that the students are familiar with. That familiarity helps build a greater connection to the activity. I have taken those steps and shortened them down to kind of a springboard type template. Topic, text, end, and extend. I'm going to use this format to go through a few lessons that I have taught both within the classroom as well as in the STEM lab. I chose the topic of weather. It had snowed recently and we were returning back from a snow day when I taught this lesson. The texts that I picked were Snowflake Bentley, The Story of Snow, and Snowflakes in Photographs. If you have not read Snowflake Bentley, it is a biographical text about a photographer who photographed snowflakes. And the book Snowflakes in Photographs is actually the book that was published using the pictures he took. My end result, I wanted the students to be exposed to a biographical text. I wanted them to know some of the attributes of snow, and then I wanted them to actually create snow and document it in the same fashion that Snowflake Bentley documented the snowflakes he found. So the extend, the what if questions that I asked while reading the book was what if we could create our own snowflake and document it, and what if we could document at least 3 of them. I felt that documenting just one may have been a little too easy since Snowflake Bentley documented them his whole life. These are the 3 books that we chose, Snowflake Bentley, and then his book, Snowflakes in Photographs, and the Story of Snow. The first picture is from my K1 classes. They use the geoboards and rubber bands to create their own snowflakes and document them using Seesaw. The second picture is from my 2nd and 3rd grade students. They used Q-tips to create their snowflakes. They documented it also using Seesaw. And this one was for my 4-5 students. They used marshmallows and toothpicks. This one was a little bit harder because they were limited on their number of supplies. They were limited on their number of toothpicks and their number of marshmallows, but they still had to create at least 3, and each of the 3 had to have all of the attributes of snow. We documented all on the Seesaw app so that the students could actually go back and compare their snowflakes to some of the other students. The topic I chose for this 3rd grade lesson was forces, more specifically gravity and how the forces interacted with gravity. The text that I chose was Jack and the Beanstalk because it was a text that I felt very familiar with, as well as the students were very familiar with, so we didn't spend a lot of time really dissecting the book. We could use it to springboard into the lesson. For the end effect, I wanted them to be able to talk about forces and how the forces interacted with each other and had an effect on the object. And then my extension, my what if questions that started the lesson was, what if Jack could not go back down the beanstalk? How could he get home? So for this lesson, we read Jack and the Beanstalk. I created a Jack and the Beanstalk design on the wall. It had Jack's house at the bottom, the giant's castle at the top, and then the beanstalk itself. The students had to find a way to start Jack at the castle in the sky and get him to his house without using the beanstalk. Some of the students created parachutes, some created airplanes, even a long slide. This one picture shows a student actually creating a seat belt for her Jack. She said that she wanted to make sure he was safe and he didn't fall out on the way down. The lesson that I chose to do with 5th graders focused on the topic ecosystems and interdependence. This was based off of their pacing guide and a curriculum topic that they were focused on in the classroom. A text that I found was, what if there were no bees? The end result, I wanted them to understand interdependence as well as cause and effect. I also wanted them to do their own research and learn to use their own voices. The extension from the book was, how can saving the bees help us? For this lesson, the students listened to the book. They made notes of why we should save the bees. We talked about interdependence. We talked about the cause and effect of farmers using pesticides, and if that killed the bees, then how would that affect other things in nature? Then the students did a little research on their own of other things that are causing bees to die, as well as things that we are currently doing to try and save the bee population. They turned that into a PSA speech. Then they used Flipgrid to record a 3-minute presentation explaining the importance of bees, their interconnectedness to the world around us, why we should save them, and even provide a suggestion of what we can do to save those bees. So this lesson not only integrated their science, but it also helped them to reach out into the world and realize that their voice does count.
Why are bees dying? Bees are dying because of the chemicals used in a farmer's and humans' daily routine. The chemicals are polluting the ecosystem, which is killing bees, and bees are also dying from the loss of habitats and nutrition in their ecosystem. Why should we save them? We should save the bees because they keep flowers alive with their pollination. If there were no bees, we would have no vegetables or fruits, and most of our ecosystem's plants would die. Without bees, forests would be less colorful, and they would also have a huge impact on an animal's diet. Because without their honey, they would have less nutrition in their meal. How can we save them? We can save them by cutting down on chemicals that are used in our lawn and farms. We could try and find different items with less chemicals to complete our routine. We could also try and make homes for bees in our yard. We could also try and keep our pollution down. Because with our pollution, if we stop putting chemicals in the air, the bees wouldn't die.
For fourth grade, I did a lesson on circuits and electricity. We focused on the inventor Garrett Morgan, so I found a text that was focused on him. The end result, I wanted them to be able to create a series circuit as well as make connections between circuits and the outside world. I wanted them to see that circuits were not just a few pieces of wire and a light bulb that we messed with in the classroom. The extension from the book was how can a circuit work in a stoplight? While this lesson was designed for fourth grade, I used the opportunity to teach kindergarten through fifth grade about Garrett Morgan, the inventor. Kindergarten and first grade created a stoplight similar to the picture in the middle out of cardboard and paper. We talked about what each one of the colors were and what they represented, and they designed a stoplight that they could rotate to get each light to light up. Second and third grade designed basic circuits with light bulbs, and we figured out ways to turn the light bulbs red, yellow, and green. For fourth and fifth grade, they created an actual working stoplight. It was made out of 3 different series circuits and cardboard. But when they stood the light up, they had to be able to show me the red light lighting up, the yellow light lighting up, and then the green light lighting up separately. Another lesson focused on the topic of coding. I used the text Hidden Figures since it focuses on the 4 women who helped code at NASA to get a man to the moon. The end result was I wanted them to be able to successfully code a robot, and the extension from the book was how can we get a robot to the moon? After reading the text with preschool, we actually coded human beings using our carpet squares. We learned the terms left, right, forward, and backward, and a student would start at the beginning, and there would be obstacles on the course between the beginning and the moon. So the class had to work together to code the person and tell them to move forward, backward, left, or right to get around the obstacles to end at the moon. They also played with the Sphero robots to get familiar with using the iPad and driving the Spheros from the beginning to the end of the obstacle course to get it to the moon. With kindergarten through 5th, we practiced coding our B-bots. They had to lay out their programming first and then code the B-bot, set it on the start, and press the go button to see if they were able to get to the moon correctly. Each mat had asteroids taped to it that were obstacles between the launch pad and the moon. So the students had to figure out how to navigate around those. A kindergarten lesson that I taught focused on balance and sturdiness in structures. We read the book 3 Little Pigs, and from there I wanted them to create a structure that could stand a strong force. The extension was what type of structure can stand up to the big bad wolf. For this lesson, the big bad wolf was a hairdryer, and the students were given a variety of materials to figure out how to build a structure that could stand up to that big bad wolf. At the end, they shared their structures. The ones that were successful, we talked about why they were successful, and the ones that were not successful, we talked about what we could do differently in the next lesson. For a fun lesson with the whole school, we focused on St. Patrick's Day. A good text to use is how to catch a leprechaun. The end result is that the students would create an operational trap and gather clues from their text. The extension was for them to try and catch the leprechaun. For this lesson, the students really focused on working through that engineering design process. They had to plan with their group, they had to design it and then build. At the end, they shared it. This lesson actually went outside of the STEM classroom as well. We had wanted posters hung around the schools. The class voted on their favorite trap, and that trap made it back to their classroom. And then the teachers got to decide if the trap actually caught a leprechaun or not. So it enabled them to kind of extend that STEM lesson into the classroom. Every year, our school does one book, one school. This past year, we read The Mouse and the Motorcycle. So I decided to use that text to connect to a STEM lesson and give some of the students a chance to practice programming. The extension from the book was that we were going to build Ralph his own motorcycle. The students used a We Do kit from Lego Education. It was the We Do 2.0. That kit comes with a Bluetooth connection, an engine, tires, everything you could think that the students would need to build a motorcycle. Once they built it, they used the We Do 2.0 app and programmed the motorcycle to move forward and backward. The next topic focused on the Gingerbread Men. The students found many different Gingerbread Men books and were reading through them. So we compare and contrasted the books in class. And then as a way to kind of wrap up a gingerbread week, we had to pull clues from their text. And in their ultimate goal, they had to try and catch their gingerbread man. Here are some of the texts that they read: him loose in the school, loose in the zoo, a cowboy, a gingerbread girl, the gingerbread baby, and a gingerbread man. They had to plan their traps, they had to draw their creations, then they had to build their trap. At the end, they had to demonstrate how the trap would work. In the far bottom picture, there's actually a monster inside of the gingerbread trap. I thought that was very creative. The students lured him in with a bait of candy, and then they had a monster that would capture him inside of the trap. So that shows that STEM is enhancing their creativity. A lesson that I did with preschool through 5th grade focused on civil rights, being kind to others, and standing up for what we believe. I based it off of the text Martin's Big Words, The Life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The end result, I wanted them to be exposed to a biographical text, us to talk about civil rights, and another lesson for them to learn to use their voices. The extension from the book was, what do you believe needs to change in today's world? We read the book. We also watched a short piece of his I Have a Dream speech. The preschoolers used Play-Doh to actually try to create Martin Luther King Jr. We talked about all the body parts that all of us have, like a head and 2 arms, 2 legs, a body. So they had to build their own Martin Luther King Jr. Kindergartners and 1st graders had to build a podium for Martin Luther King Jr. So they not only had to create him, but they had to build a podium for him to stand at. We watched the video and they noticed that his podium had a lot of microphones on it. So part of their challenge was that their podium had to have at least 2 microphones. My 2nd grade through 5th graders created a speech of their own, focusing on something that they wanted to see change in the world. They used Flipgrid to create their speeches.
I have a dream that black people and white people would stop being racist, because I think that racism is a form of bullying. And the solution is, I think that the solution is to charge people whenever they are being racist, because racism is just bullying and it's mean. I have a dream that one day this nation will protect animals and don't destroy them. I have a dream that one day they'd stop destroying nature. I have a dream that one day we will live peace with animals. I have a dream that we will stop bothering animals. I have a dream that one day we will stop littering the beaches, the park, and everywhere else. I have a dream that one day we stop destroying the trees. The trees are home to many animals. They give us fresh air, and without them, we wouldn't even exist on this planet, because we're destroying them.
Now, let's do one together. We're going to walk through the same steps that I use whenever I plan a lesson for the STEM lab. We're going to start by thinking about a topic, then thinking about the text, thinking about what we want them to be able to do at the end, and then how to extend the book to be able to tie into an activity. The first topic that comes to mind is that third grade studies the solar system. I know within the STEM lab that I have a book related to the planet Mars. So I'm going to choose the topic to be the planet Mars. And I'm going to use the text that I know I've already read, so I'm familiar with it, called You Are the First Kid on Mars. I would make sure that I'm familiar with this book. I've read it, I've reread it, I've found a few interesting facts in it that I want to make sure that I really emphasize with the students when I'm reading the book. Then I'm going to think about the end. What exactly is it that I want them to get out of this? My ending is I want them to think about what life is like on Mars compared to what life is like on Earth. So I want them to do that mental compare and contrast. I may even have them plan with a Venn diagram, comparing, contrasting Mars to Earth. Things that they know are found on Mars, things that they know are not, things that they know are found on Earth, and things that are not. And then a way to extend past the book. In this book, a little boy goes to Mars, but then at the end, he's able to get on a rocket and to return back home. So I was thinking, well, what if instead of him returning home, he got stranded on Mars for a period of time? I picked 6 months, a period of time where you really would have to do something in order to survive. So what if you became stranded on Mars for 6 months? Now that would require a lot of equipment, because we know that there's nothing on Mars that's going to help us to survive. And I don't want to limit my students by telling them you have no equipment at all, because that's going to make the task impossible. So they're going to be stranded on Mars with equipment. And that equipment could be cardboard, it could be toilet paper rolls, it could be construction paper, it could be a variety of materials that they can manipulate, but it's their equipment. I would ask them, what type of home would you build? How would you survive? I would want to trigger them thinking about, how are they going to get air? How are they going to get water? How are they going to get food? I want them to think about what is naturally on Mars versus what's not. Can they walk outside and find a river and scoop up some water and bring it back home? Or are they going to have to find a way to recycle the water that they already have? Their answers and what they create will actually show me what they already know about Mars, what they picked up from the book about Mars, as well as any misconceptions that they may already have. So now we come to the question of why STEM? Why should we do it? One thing that I love about STEM is just watching the students create together. They blossom from that communication. They also learn that sometimes their idea is not the best idea, that sometimes someone else might have a better idea, but also they learn confidence when they do have a really good idea that they're. Another reason why I enjoy teaching STEM is that the students eventually reach a point where they are so independent that you are their facilitator, you're not their instructor. We had a moment last school year where I needed to supervise 2 classes at once in my STEM lab. So I put a divider down the middle and stressed about how I was going to handle 2 whole classes. Well, I gave them each their own STEM challenge, and they took off with it. They didn't cross the barrier between the 2 classes. They didn't talk to the other classes. They weren't distracted. They were solely focused on getting their challenge done in the time that they were in the STEM lab. And I think that independence grew from doing STEM lessons, both in the STEM lab as well as in the classroom. I can't wait to see how this independence plays out outside of the school building. Unfortunately, it's time to bring our meeting to an end. There is an evaluation website on your screen. You have until Monday, November 30th to go to this website and fill out your evaluation. Give me feedback as well as to let Moore County know which sessions you participated in. You will receive a 0.1 CEU credit for completing that evaluation, and you should receive your certificates on Tuesday, December 1st. I want to say a big thank you to all of you for coming to my session. I hope that something I said was beneficial. If you have any questions or any ideas that you want to share, or maybe someone just to brainstorm with, feel free to email me at ray@ncmcs.org, or you can contact me on my school Twitter, which is RESRay. Thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and don't forget to complete your evaluation. Bye.